I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my partner, friend, and colleague, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is, and I can't believe this, but this is the 314th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. We're going to talk gold, dollar, bonds, China, demands, the Trumpster, kneeling in front of the 5,000-year-old culture that is our new boss, is what it looks like. China. We're going to get into a lot of things, but before we get into all that, first and foremost, Mr. Hodge, how goes you, sir?
I'm doing better than the tariff negotiations, Gerardo. How are you?
Well, I'm great. I'm well. I appreciate the question. If you are to believe China, there are no negotiations. So we could just start there. I said last week that, the high-level administration officials called us peasants and said that, we would bow to the knee of a 5,000-year-old civilization. And exactly what happened this week. I mean, we went from Fire Powell and he's a loser and Mr. Too Late to with a T-O, not T-O-O. He misspelled that. And then China, was going to have like 400% tariffs and 134, and maybe I'll bring it down to 55 to 60. We went from all that to China just coming out and saying there are no negotiations. Oh, and by the way, there will be no negotiations until all of the tariffs are dropped. This while, we still have all sorts of bans on all sorts of critical metals out of China, including rare earths. We talked about that last week. So long-winded way of saying, I think volatility is going to continue to be present with us. And I want to start with the overall indices.
Yes, sir.
I said last week that the bond market was telling me that I didn't believe the worst was over yet for the major indices. And sure enough, the bond market has continued to put pressure on the overall indices and the market, which has been, and we'll get to this in a while here, but it's been very beneficial for where we dabble, and me exclusively in the resource space and you heavily in the resource space. But overall indices, where do you see support on your magic chart lines there?
I think resistance is more important. So we're below where support was before, right? So
Yep.
Looking at the line, you're at about, $5,500 support. Maybe I'll just share my screen and give the people what they want. And then we'll get it done here for a second. So here's the S&P. I haven't moved these lines. They've just been on here for a while. This was previous support, right? Which is now resistance. So 5524 says the mouse. And you can see it bounced up there right after the carnage started with this big wide green candle, right? This would have been like a 1,000-point up day. Turned right around. Same thing here. So all that to say, don't think we're out of the woods yet, and maybe we'll just look at the VIX real quick while we're here. Can I do it? Yes, I can. And then I'll stop sharing, but worth it because the VIX has come all the way down too. If you can see here, we spiked all the way up to 60 and it's come down, but it doesn't want to close the gap down here to where it was, where all was well and good. So we'll see, right? Like you say, no real closure yet. Seems to be trading on headlines day to day, and the headlines are not based in anything except for tweets and hot air that comes out of Trump's mouth, right? So that can seemingly change. I don't think the meeting with Xi is until the first week of May, if memory serves. And so we still got to get through earnings season. And so I expect it to be relatively choppy until we get through that. But sticking with my call, though, no recession and the second half of the year, I think will be better, but a little bit more chop here for the next couple of weeks.
All right. And I just want to provide context for anybody that thinks I'm being biased. Reporter, China is saying it's fake news that trade talks are happening. Trump, well, they had a meeting this morning. Reporter, who's they? Trump. I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is. It doesn't matter who they is. I can't write this stuff, guys. You wouldn't believe me if I did. Look, the one thing it's been very good for volatility and the bond market putting pressure on rates is gold. Everybody said gold was overbought. Everybody said you should expect a $300 correction. Not that it can't happen, but the bottom line is gold's right back up to $3,340 and looks like it seriously wants to make a run at that 3,500 mark, which if it does, wouldn't
It did.
surprise me if it overshot to 4,000, right? There is no overhead resistance. And so what was resistance now is support, which is the inverse, the opposite of what's happening in the broader indices. Thoughts on gold?
I mean, it touched $3,500 for what an uncle of mine used to say was a cock hair. I mean, it touched it just for a cock hair and then came right back down, right? And so it wants to go there. You got the banks out now, the bigger banks that put out projections talking about $4,000 gold. And what I didn't hear you mention was the dollar, which is remains below 100 on the
Yep.
DXY, while Trump continues to pressure Powell and the Federal Reserves for rate cuts. And look, if you get back to rate cuts and any sort of QE prematurely, especially while inflation is going down, because it's going to go down again on the next print, it's not going to be good for the dollar. And now you're getting sort of back to traditional correlations where the gold and the dollar are trading inversely, nearly 1-to-1. Like over the past 2 weeks, I think it's a 0.97 inverse correlation, right? So, dollar goes down a unit, 1 unit, and gold goes up 1 unit. And Lord knows that the dollar's been going down from the 108, 110 level it was a few months ago. And so, I mean, those charts couldn't be more juxtaposed. I won't pull them back up, but dollar's doing this and gold is doing this. And so, you know, trees don't go to the sky. I say that all the time. And so, if gold has to catch its breath at 3,300 or 3,350, my God, that's a good place for gold to catch its breath.
Phenomenal place. Phenomenal place. We have to talk silver. And then I want to talk this webinar that, excuse me, we're hosting here on the 30th, because we had a lot of subscribers write in with questions and doubts and concerns about how to navigate, these turbulent waters. And on our end, for me, everyone knows I'm an optimist by nature, but I couldn't be more excited. And so didn't make sense for you and I, Nick, to keep delivering and finding great deals to participate in and making money in this market while people are concerned and not having a product or something out there that allows us to share our opinions for whatever those are worth. So for those of you that are interested, we're going to be having a webinar about primarily gold and resource stocks and how we're navigating this market, how we plan on profiting from it. I think this is going to be the single most profitable cycle of my 16-year or so speculating career in the resource space. And we're gonna have a few picks, exclusive picks for you all. I'll go through those. We're gonna put together a special report for people. So I invite all of you. We'll put a link up, but please write in, send questions, and by all means, hang out with us for 30 to 60 minutes. I think it'll be informative, and it's you get your money back if you're not satisfied, because it's absolutely free.
It's April 30th, next Wednesday, right at the market close, 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific. You got to be on Daily Profit Cycle or Resource Stock Digest to attend. You'll get an email when we go live, or we've got a page up that I can put in the description of this podcast. As long as you save it, you can hit up that link, and that's where we'll be streaming it. So yeah, it's a celebration of $3,000 gold, and it's really a kickoff party for junior mining, right? We've seen the bigger names move. We had
Yep.
Newmont report earnings this week. We'll have Barrick up soon. We know the numbers are going to start to get better. This likely won't be the blowout quarter. Next quarter will be the blowout quarter.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the majors have started to move. GDX has moved, and now we're starting to see the trickle down effect, as it were, right? As typically happens in a gold bull market, when the next tier of stocks, which are junior mining stocks, which is where you dabble, are starting to catch a bid. And look, there's been deals just over the past week since you and I have spoke. Not only did gold go to $3,500 for a second, but Origin Royalties was taken out. Nova Gold's doing billion-dollar deals with a Barrick, I guess it was, to sell the other half of the asset there. And so, look, what was I reading this morning about the gold equities, right? They've been sort of biding their time. The balance sheets
Yep.
obviously look really good. They've been doing a lot of buybacks and other things to reward shareholders, but that's starting to slow, is what I was reading. It was an RBC report. I was reading it in, saying that some market participants are taking that as a signal that, I mean, what else would you do with the cash, Gerardo, if you weren't buying your shares back? You might go out and and blow a couple $100 million on some juniors, heaven forbid.
Or at the very least, like what happened with Thesis Gold, get a 10% stake taken by some of these major companies, right? And that's, again, I can't be more excited for the picks that we'll be able to share. Some will be familiar to some of you, and one will most definitely not be familiar to you all, because it will be a brand new pick that I could not be more excited about. Looking forward to bringing that to you all. Subscribers of Junior Resource Monthly will likely get that pick in the next week or so. We've been doing a lot of due diligence in the background, as we always do, making sure that the right pieces and right systems are in place for what I think can turn a $10 million company into potentially $1 billion company. We recently wrote a check for this company, Nick. You and I are both biased shareholders in that opinion. But I plan on making a nice sum of paper, and I would love for you all to join me on that. I think it's going to be a good one. So should be fun. Excited to share it. Excited to share the other two. And the beautiful thing is all three of those companies will have drilling programs here within the next 30 days. So catalyst abound. Anything you want to add to that, Nick?
No, that's all good stuff. I would just remind you that we've done this a couple of other times, and we'll talk about the stocks we talked about those other times during this webinar, and how high they went up after we did a webinar about them. So it behooves you to attend, behooves you to take action, and now's the time.
Now is
these
the
gold
time.
stocks are going to break out.
We have to talk silver and we have to talk copper. Both have performed beautifully here over the past several weeks. Copper in particular. Let me start with copper because
I was going to start with silver. It's all good though.
We could do silver if you want. Let's go silver. Silver works. Silver for a long time just couldn't break that 33 handle in a convincing way. It's starting to look like 33 is the new floor, at least on a technical basis. You are the chartist amongst us, Nick. What do you see on that silver chart of yours that you are peeking at as we speak?
Again, I think resistance more important than the floor at this point. So because it's bumping right up against it. So let's get there and talk about it. Again, haven't moved the line. It's been on there for the past couple of weeks as we talked about silver. The line's at 33.84 if memory serves. Yeah, 33.88. There it is. And it's bounced there once, bounced there twice, and wants to get there again. Maybe the third knock on the door will be the one that sends it through. This level is a historic level, right? You got to scroll to get back to where this level was in the last bull market, right? In 2010, 2011. And this is the level it's trying to break out to. You mentioned 33, $34 level. Certainly a close above 34 on a big weekly or monthly time frame would signal a silver bull market, and I think it's inevitable, right? And I believe we're approaching a breakout in the silver prices, and then subsequent to that, the silver equities, and I know you've been getting your portfolio in order on the smaller side of things, and I've been doing the same through ETFs as I've been telling you. So we were talking about SLVP and SLVR last week, which is the Sprott ETF. That's a hybrid component of physical silver and miners, and so this is getting bullish. I believe this is going to break out, and that's it. That's what the silver chart looks like. You want to look at copper?
Yeah, let's look at copper, and I'm betting that silver breaks out, by the way, y'all. One of my largest positions is a pure silver play that, again, we'll be talking about during this webinar that Nick and I are putting on here on the 30th. So could it be more excited about where things are and really, really excited about where things are headed? I want to stress to everybody the importance of positioning, right? Being early, getting ahead of trends, allocating capital when no one wants to allocate capital in the better names, with the better teams, with the better share structures. That's how you maximize profit in these cycles. We'll be talking a lot about that during the webinar. Let's talk copper. Let's look at that pretty looking chart.
Yeah. So, well, copper was interesting because look here during the tariff meltdown, what happened, and the world was going to end, and there was going to be a recession, and
it might
copper
still end, Nick.
Well, sure. Copper says no, at least not in the near term. The end of the world has been postponed or at least delayed. But importantly is where it bounced off of here, right? This is the important part. So We talked a while about breaking through 4, and yeah, it was exciting last year when it went to 5, but then it came all the way back down. And what I see here is several bounces off of $4 that make $4 the new floor for copper. The last couple of weeks have obviously been exceedingly volatile. Those are big moves for copper. You've seen it go from 5, what is that, 525 above, all the way down to almost 4, and now back up here to 488 where it's trading today. But that's a bullish chart, and the equities are confirming that because they're starting to report earnings. I was telling you, I don't want to give you all the free names. I'll just say a big copper company. I was telling you I was buying a big copper company a couple of weeks ago. It reported earnings today. They weren't the greatest earnings, right? But they got a pass from the market because the price of copper is going up. And that's what I was saying. This quarter isn't going to be the blowout quarter. Next quarter is going to be the blowout quarter. So this company, which is the largest North American producer of copper, had mediocre earnings today, but the stock went up 4%, right? On something that's a several billion-dollar company. And so I don't know what else to say. Copper's looking good. We've traded it well. I'm talking about the big end of the spectrum, and we're definitely positioned on the small end of the spectrum as well.
Copper's looking good. Silver's looking good. Gold is looking good. Uranium is starting to catch a bid. At least the equities are. I would love your thoughts on uranium. There were several positions today. I'll give you names. These aren't picks per se, but just companies that I watch that I keep an eye on. Sky Harbor Resources up 15%. Encore Energy, who everybody had thought was dying and going away, up some 30%. And so these weren't small moves. These are pretty consequential breakouts that I think are going to continue. And that signals to me that the funds believe, and at least smart capital believes, this is likely the bottom in this leg of the uranium cycle, which again, talking about structure and talking about positioning, folks, you have to get ahead of these turns. I mean, in Encore Energy, you would have missed a 30% run today. And I think that was after a 15% run here earlier the week. So yeah, no, look, there's a lot of great names out there that are being given away, selling for pennies on the dollar, great assets, permitted production facilities, exciting explorers. Pick your risk tolerance and get in there and sharpen up that uranium portfolio. Thoughts on uranium in the sector?
I don't have a lot of thoughts. I mean, it's the price action is the price action. It looks good. Hard to say if it's bottom. I'm obviously a long-term bull on uranium, but and I saw those moves that you're talking about today. But what I also saw was the cannabis ETF was up 20-some% today. And so I'm not sure if that's a uranium specific move or it's just a risk on move, and the market is buying that the worst of the tariffs is over because Scott fucking Bessent gives them a private room talk. I'm not sure, I don't know.
That was interesting. Let's talk about that really quick. So for those of you not keeping track, God, this administration, man. Yeah, I mean, Scott Bessent had a closed door meeting with hedge fund managers and Wall Street execs and all his buddies, and basically told them, like, look, what I've been saying, these tariffs aren't sustainable. Like, we're gonna take them back. Like, this is temporary because we can't keep doing this, right? And so they went out and bought the market, and that's why you got your big rally here a couple of days ago. And so again, if you don't think that insider trading is prevalent across the board on both sides of the aisle, you're not paying attention. And I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. Email me about it.
I would like to go in a closed door room and get some drill results before they come out to the public market and see if that's not insider trading. Because the public message from the White House that the tariffs were going to be ending, and we were going to negotiations, that didn't come out until after the closed door meeting. It was a thorough what do I want to say? Tickling of the balls of their Wall Street cohorts, right? I mean that's as insider as it gets, and that's what's wrong with the system, and that's what's wrong with the system. We don't get those insider tips, and it's something to be proud of. Is I guess what you should be thinking and saying is that we profit and we have success despite not being part of that insider cabal on either side of the aisle, right?
Yeah, and I think touching on integrity and just touching on the way that we go about our business. I think I think we don't we aren't just successful in spite of that. I think we're successful because of it, right? I think the universe only works one way, and the energy you put out there really, it sounds as corny and cheesy and cliche, but that is the energy you get back. And so, yeah, it definitely not a good week for the administration policy wise. Definitely not a good week optically. Definitely not a good week. Everybody was telling me that the rich were going to get taxed and corporations were going to go ahead and have their corporate tax rate increase so that, and people believe this shit too, so that Americans that make 150,000 or less would have all other income tax disappeared. I laughed at that headline when I saw it a few days ago, and sure enough, today Trump's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I know who I work for. It ain't you peasants. Like, I'm not giving you guys a tax break at the expense of my buddies. I'm giving them a tax break at your expense." So that's where we're at in 2025, man. It's we're not all the way out of April yet, and the bingo card is a fool.
Yeah. Where do you want to go from there? I was going to talk about Washington state taxes, but we don't have to. There's some other things on there. I mean, we should talk about Klaus Schwab for a second while we're talking about Bessent and closed door meetings. I'm sure you saw the Klaus Schwab news, right?
Yep. Yeah, get into it. Give them the context. Give them the whole thing. Be an investigator. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
This guy's a lifelong globalist, right? I mean, he's an unelected guy, an unelected bureaucrat that founded the the WEF, the World Economic Forum, which, as you'll know, has its annual meeting in Davos every year and is made to look and seem important through the media channels because it's a giant circle jerk, right? Like Andrew Ross Sorkin wants to go there and pal around with his buddies, and all the billionaires fly their jets in and tell you why you shouldn't be farting because it hurts the environment. And it's a pay-to-pay club. I mean, you got to pay to go to the conference. I mean,
Literally,
it's a pay-to-play globalist club, right? And the guy, Klaus Schwab, who is older gentleman at this point now, his own staff turned against him, essentially blew the whistle on him getting well, what was the phrasing? Private in-room massages. I mean, he's obviously getting jerked off or blown. He's getting handies, a la like the owner of the Patriots all those years ago. And so what did I write there in the notes? It's like Klaus Schwab, hand jobs, and the end of globalism. And that's the takeaway here, right? As we get this.
It's gonna be the title of this episode, folks.
I think
get away with that one.
I think it's a signal of the end of globalism, right? And, it's been partially the fourth turning, but also this just inward turning of nations, right? You've got all this tariff stuff going on. You've got this talk of reshoring and domestic manufacturing. And we've been talking about rare earths and the need for production and processing to move from east to west. Well, another way to say that is the end of globalism. And there's no better metaphoric signifier of that than Klaus Schwab's downfall through handies.
Yeah, I think it's very symbolic. And you said that really well, by the way. It's really symbolic of where we are globally, where we are as a country, where we are just in general. And look, fourth turnings are notorious for really outing the things that maybe are better hidden during other turnings. And I think we're going to continue to see more and more and more of this. And who knows, maybe even one day we get the Epstein list, right?
One day, counting the days, we should have a counter up.
Oh God. Yeah. I like the national debt counter. That would be hilarious. What else you got on your mind? I know the will of the people is semantic. I saw that on our quick sheet that we put up 2 minutes before we start talking, which is how we do things around here, folks.
Well, I'll tell you. So I got to get into local politics, but I'll make it brief. And frankly, it goes wider. You just talked about, Trump not giving a tax break to likely the majority of folks that got him into office, right? If you look at Trump's base, that's who you described there, right? Those folks that aren't going to be getting the tax break and instead going to the millionaires. Here in Washington State, we've been long battling homelessness, and I've chronicled a bit of this on the podcast. And we had a vote recently to ban homeless camping within 1,000 feet of schools, public buildings, things like that. And there was a Supreme Court case, a national Supreme Court case that local officials, politicians, assholes said they were waiting for to get clearance to enforce that, right? They were saying, we need to make sure we're not infringing on the rights, yada, yada. We're waiting for clarification on the Supreme Court case. They got clarification last year that they could enforce this, right? And I want to be clear, 74% of Spokanites voted in favor of this, right? Like a super majority in a time when nobody agrees on anything, right? Like the city wants this camping ban. And so that's been sort of in effect for the past year or so, but not really enforced because of the current mayoral and city council administration in Spokane. Party is irrelevant here. They're not doing the will of the people. And so what happened here in Washington State just in the past week is the Washington Supreme Court ruled against that Democratic election, that ruled against the people, saying that and I'm going to get into, this is where the semantics come in, that it was administrative and not legislative. And so we're not able to have this 1,000-foot camping ban because it wasn't a new piece of legislation. It was augmenting an existing piece, which is semantics, otherwise known as, and I said this last week, fucking bullshit. And so they did this same thing with the income tax in Washington State, where the Washington State Constitution says that you're not allowed to have an income tax. And a couple of years, they implemented a capital gains tax. And I told you about this, and then the listeners as well, Gerardo, wherein the Supreme Court of Washington State ruled that it's not an income tax, it's an excise tax, which is again semantics, otherwise known as fucking bullshit. And so now, and that's sort of the nutshell of it, right? And I don't want to rant too long because my blood will boil, but two things. One, locally here in Spokane, you have this city council who's pretty vocal, right? They're on the social media. They got this nice little media outlet locally that maybe I'll espouse on more one day, that is sort of their mouthpiece, like this new magazine in Spokane that they push out all their propaganda with, essentially. It's not reporting. And through that, they say they're doing the will of the people. Like they changed some traffic patterns downtown a couple of weeks ago. No more turns on red and more bike lanes, which fine, great. I'm all for safety and whatever. But they have this thing, like this press conference, and talk about this is what the people want. This is what the people voted for. And this is what we're giving them. And I'm looking at a 74% majority on the homeless thing saying, the fuck you are doing the will of the people. What the fuck are you talking about? And so 3 days ago at the city council meeting, the city council voted to enshrine that Washington Supreme Court vote that said the homeless thing was administrative and not legislative. And so now we can't even get it back on the ballot. Yeah, they're doing the fucking will of the people. Meanwhile, over in Seattle, we got a $12 billion budget shortfall. And what are they going to do? They're going to run up the tax. They're going to run up the gas tax. They're going to run up the taxes on businesses. And I was telling you a little bit about this last week. And so, I mean, just working through it, man, just clear fourth turning, dumbass politicians, not being able to read an income statement, clearly not being able to read a fucking polling statement. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Gold's going higher, everybody, is what Nick's trying to tell you. And so is silver, and so is the stuff in our portfolio. It's a bizarro world out there, folks. I've said it many, many times, but I think it's the most aptly named podcast. The history of the world. And that's a very long time. We called this back when did we start this? 2019?
313 divided by 52. I mean,
yeah, holy smokes.
5.5 years ago.
A long time ago. And so no, it's unfortunately gone in the direction that we thought it was going to go. Good and bad to that. The good thing is that so has the price of all the stuff that we're invested in. So no, we're going to keep hard at work for you folks on that front. I want to again remind everyone to please tune in to our webinar on the 30th. Excited to share that with you all. Anything else you want to add to, Nick?
Yeah. There was an article that came out today from this elementary school in Spokane saying that before recess every day, the teacher's got to pick up the needles and glass off the fucking playground. Go fuck yourself, Spokane City Council.
Get it together, Spokane City Council. I don't talk politics outside of my town, city, or but this is rampant, and this is the kind of stuff that's going on county to county around the country. And you're right, it's not enforcing the will of the people. It's quite the opposite. So yeah.
All right, let's talk stocks and money and how they're not going to tax it. They're not going to tax us.
Let's do it. Gold's going higher, folks. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 314th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. Be kind to each other out there, folks. Enjoy the last week of April. We'll see you next week.
See ya.